Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Thanks for joining us. We're talking today about how to discover SharePoint and the intelligent intranet, how this can transform your workplace collaboration. My name is Ryan Emmerich. I'm the Director of Client Experience here at Kite Tech. I'm going to be your host, and I'm so glad you could come and join us today for the webinar. Just go through a brief intro. If you haven't heard of us before, maybe you've heard about Kite Technology for a long time. We're a managed services and IT consulting firm. We have nationwide kind of client base, a couple different verticals really that we work in for over 30 years between independent insurance agencies, some legal, nonprofit, healthcare, professional services oriented organizations. So it really spans the gamut. The commonality to a lot of those folks is we really help them with cloud transformation and Microsoft oriented services. So yeah, we really want to share the tools and the tips, specifically SharePoint today, of how to transform your business. And some of the services that we work through are included in the slide below. I want to go ahead also just and introduce our presenter today. Some of you guys maybe have worked with Adam or heard of him before. He is our on-staff Microsoft MVP. He's very proud to share that with you, which is awesome. One of the select few. And he serves as our cloud solutions architect. So focusing on Microsoft and other cloud products to really transform your business, efficiency, productivity, and just putting those tools in hands for your business transformation. So I'll go ahead, flip on your camera there, Adam. Good to see you. Let you take away the presentation today. Thanks so much for sharing with us.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate the intro. Hope you guys are doing well. As Ryan said, my job title here is Cloud Solutions Architect, also a Microsoft MVP, which is a community of Microsoft recognized experts of about 3,000 or so of us now. And we got awarded that here this year, as well as some other, Microsoft partner like certifications that you can see on the screen there. Just happy to kind of be here talking about SharePoint. It's funny, the Microsoft division here at Kite Tech, I've had the privilege and honor to lead it for our team at large, and it just really excited about the future of where things are going in the Microsoft cloud. For me, really SharePoint is kind of where things really started in our growth and transformation to really leveraging the Microsoft cloud. And so just excited to talk about SharePoint. We haven't done a SharePoint webinar. We've talked around it before, but never really about it specifically. So excited to be here talking about it. Here's a quick snap of the agenda. We're going to do a little bit of an overview. We're also going to talk about the features and functionality of what the SharePoint Intranet site is. And then we're going to talk about how it can add value to your business, understanding how to access, SharePoint on different platforms like mobile and as well as, the desktop, and then talk about integration across the Microsoft 365 canvas, and then best practices and next steps and how we might be able to help you guys. So thanks for being here and tuning in. Feel free to submit your questions in the questions pane along the way, and I will keep an eye on that. I have it over here on my side screen, and if we don't get to your questions through the presentation, we will get to them at the end. So we're just going to start out by kind of talking about SharePoint and what it is. A lot of folks don't really know that SharePoint is much more than just a file sharing and collaboration space. Anyone who's played inside of the Microsoft 365 landscape is probably familiar with the fact that it's a place where people store files. A lot of people don't know that you can use it to create and craft business solutions and processes, as well as really to bring communication and employee experiences together around, discovery and sharing of data. Fundamentally, the SharePoint is also known in the Microsoft communities as the intelligent intranet. And so it's thought of as more than just an internal resource for a website or a place where you keep files, but a place where you can get engaged with people. So let's talk a little bit about some of the different applications that we see being used for SharePoint. So it gives you the ability to communicate across the organization. You're going to reach a broader audience with the intranet site, have the ability to really post messages and share content. Maybe you're going to share company news every week. You do a weekly news bulletin, or maybe you broadcast live events. Or maybe you're in a place where you have some sort of a crisis, like, we're going to shut the building down because of COVID, those kinds of things. And so it's a place where you can really connect and communicate across the organization at scale. In addition to that, it gives you the ability to connect people with things that are relevant to what they do in your business. So you can train people on how to use technology. You can go ahead and set up groups around departments or teams, or even interact with external customers, those kinds of things. You can also deliver video, or you can post documents for employee policies and procedures, HR kinds of things. So that's a little bit. In addition to that, you can engage employees by supporting them with a new employee experience, connecting the employees with the company leaders, and then you can have a way to call out and recognize those employees as well at large. And then things like employee directories or other uses that we see for them. So that's kind of in the broader sense of the larger scale. In addition to that, you can kind of dive down and really create what's called the SharePoint team site. And so we see these use cases a lot more in terms of where departments or efforts, like you might have a special project for a customer, those kinds of things. We see folks will connect and create a site based on that effort. And so you can have news, lists, libraries. You can integrate other applications like a shared OneNote notebook. I'm sure that many of you all are using OneNote in some way, shape, or form, but did you know that you can have a shared OneNote place where you can share with a group of people? You can also easily link, this internal private team site with the main site and the navigation thereof. That's a little bit about kind of what SharePoint is. Now we're going to kind of dive around kind of the layout and the functionality to get you a little bit familiar with what the SharePoint intranet is. And so this here is we have the basic layout for the SharePoint online main feed. So if you click on the actual icon, the little hamburger, I like to call it, but it's really the application tile up there in the top left, what you will find is you can go ahead and navigate to the SharePoint app. After you've gone to the SharePoint app, you will have the ability to see the different sites that you're a part of and that you're frequenting. You can also search for sites, or from here, you can create a new site as well as create a news post. And so those are some options for what you can do and get to here on the main page. If we look ahead, you can see here, this is a typical way that you can interact with files. So after you've connected into the SharePoint site, if you click on the documents area there on the left, you can see that you have all kinds of different options. You can pin a document to the top of the list. You can copy a link to share it externally. You can move that around. You could rename it, download a copy. You could also see who has access or see a preview of the document, or move it to a different place inside of your existing SharePoint space. If you dive a little bit deeper into the files aspect, you can see that you have the ability to upload files and folders, as well as sharing files, copying links out, and then syncing files with your local computer. A lot of folks think that, well, if I have this SharePoint site, I'm not going to be able to, interact with all the things that I need to. Well, that's not necessarily true. You can actually pretty easily get right to where you need to be and share things out as it makes sense to your organization. So I'm going to go ahead and now that I've kind of shared the screen out a little bit, I am going to jump off the slide deck just for a minute. And I'm going to go to my browser here and show you guys a little bit more about the main page. So this is one example of what a SharePoint site is. Basically, you can see here that this has a layout of some news articles here at the top. If you click in, you can actually see the picture. If you go back to the main page here, you can kind of come down a little bit more. You can see there's been some different branding guidelines that have came out, and we can click in and kind of read that article. In addition to that, you can see here, this is the main company newsfeed that we've decided to highlight on the main page. In addition to that, we've created kind of an employee dashboard over here that's spread out with things like your PTO and different praise you can send out, as well as different holidays and inventory and things like that. And so these are all different specific cards that you can share and see pretty easily inside of that. We've also highlighted a few different videos, as well as you can see the company news with more information. Keep scrolling down, and then you can see the company events, company culture, and those kinds of things. And then at the bottom, you can see that we have this link structure, which is great. And then at the top, you can see that we have a link structure as well. And so you can see these are links to other SharePoint sites that have been, built out for the company. And then you can also even kind of go to these specific areas, as you need to. And so that's a little bit on the kind of what an intranet landing page can look like. If you actually, go back out, you can see we also have the ability to have a home site organizational structure with different links that you can navigate internally. If we go back to the My Sites, in addition to the landing page, let's say that we go to a team site, like the drone workshop, and you can see this is a completely different layout. And so from here, you can easily add new things. You can also interact with your files and see your news feed. So this is just a little sidebar. And then if you take a look here, this is another one of the different project pages. But over here, you can see here's the documents area. So all of these have different documents areas. You can easily do an upload. You can add a folder and those kinds of things. So there are lots of different ways you can interact. If I wanted to sync this down with my desktop, I could hit this button. I could also add a shortcut to OneDrive. This is one that a lot of folks don't know about. But if you see it as Project Falcon UI test, if I click add shortcut to OneDrive, you will see, hey, it says it did do that successfully. I'm going to take a moment and take a quick detour and go over here to my OneDrive. And you can see under the My Files section, now this document library for the Falcon project is right here. And I can easily get to it. And rather than having to navigate several different document libraries later, it's just right here and available to us. So that's a little bit about kind of some of the functionality inside of SharePoint. I'm going to go ahead and switch back over to the deck. And give me 1 second here. We're making our way back to the deck. Here we are. So that kind of covers a little bit about the slide sharing and those kinds of things. You can also see you can create a site from scratch or add a new page, add some web parts or different things to the document library links. And then there are some ways that you can, when you've sunk them down, you can also right click any folder if you're syncing it and tell it to make it always available. Or you can also say, hey, I want to see this online or share it out. So those context menus for how you can interact and share give you the ability to go through and right click and manipulate those. So this was just a little bit, I did kind of go off book a little bit from the presentation to bring you guys into a little live demo that wasn't rehearsed, but I hope it gives you the context for what what a site looks like, as well as kind of an overview of some of the functionality. Now let's talk a little bit about, and I do see you guys have questions coming in. We will go ahead and entertain those questions along the way. I'm going to answer one question that came in from Ashley. Ashley asked the question of, hey, when you went and did that link to OneDrive, if you make a change inside that folder, does it automatically update in SharePoint? The answer is yes, Ashley. It actually goes through, and it's not creating a copy, it's a actual link to that file. So think of it more of a shortcut than a copy, but it does update it in SharePoint in real time. So that's the answer to that question. So great. So let's go back to the SharePoint Intranet. How can it add value to your business? So, here's some specific things that we see folks doing. We did highlight some of the use cases. This will allow you to put personalized news and content in front of somebody. It'll allow you to create engaging conversation and video to keep connections active with your community at large. In addition to that, as you post videos or other things, you can see here in this middle example on the Costco travel, the second example, you can see you do have the ability to reply to that and interact with it. You could post a message and those kinds of things. And then in addition to that, you can also leverage search, right? The content that I'm looking for. Let's say I don't know exactly what it is, but I know it's out there somewhere where you can search for it, and that's great. So that's a little bit around the value, and then it's accessible, guys. The value of having access to things across different platforms is huge. People really underrate that value in talking about ways that they can interact with that content. Let's talk a little bit more about some different specific scenarios. So you can see, that one big opportunity to improve the employee engagement. You're going to 4 different ways here that you can think of. You can create a digital workspace that you can see a landing page where you can actively communicate with either, again, a large audience or a targeted audience like a department or something along those lines. You can also use it as a venue for the leadership team to engage your company at large, right? And they can communicate out. They can send out blog articles or videos, town hall meetings, documents, those kinds of things. And then also the new hiring, onboarding, as well as the employee recognition. Those are both underutilized opportunities that you can go and post up, in a website format. In addition to that, you can have company events and company news posted on there that you can get to. You can have specific things that are for different lines of business, meaning different departments. So if you want to provide operational updates on how maybe your sales team in the field is doing, you can do that. You can also go and create a place where you can get real-time tech support or go and get articles and those kinds of things. So let's go ahead and we'll move forward. This kind of just goes through some more specific things, that you can actually put on there. You can go in, for that new employee experience, you can go and basically take your employee manual and put it in the format of a web page. You can have links to all of your benefits and those kinds of things that will allow you to go and make it a one-stop shop for that new employee. And then for your events and news, you can brand it, announce on it, create follow-up engagements, and also create little countdown timers and things like that that really scream and tell your people, hey, it's coming, those kinds of things. So let's talk about, maybe an approach here. You could build a prototype. A prototype's going to give you the ability to really kind of a trial run, a test to see what's out there and see how, things might look. Microsoft provides some really good resources around a thing that they have called the lookbook. And basically what the SharePoint Lookbook is it's out-of-box scenarios that you can adopt today and really pick up these templates and start to run with them. You do need help from IT to get them up and running, but here are a few of the scenarios that are ready for you to consume today. So one of them is the leadership connection. We talked about, folks in your leadership being able to communicate out, and this is a landing place where they can go and do corporate communication. In addition to that, you could have a general news site. So I don't know how many times you'll go and you'll hire a new employee and folks are religiously sending out emails, right? They're going and every time there's a company announcement, it goes out via email. Well, what if instead of it going out via email, it went out as a news article, which also went out as an email? And then when that new employee comes, you can say, catch up on company news by going to our news site. And you don't have to dig out all the emails with the links and forward them along. So that's another example of crisis communication, right? For announcements, resources for folks, those kinds of things, which is great. Microsoft Learning Pathways, I'm going to entertain a question that came in from Tasha. Tasha asked, is there a learning platform that works with SharePoint? And so this is a great question and one I get asked all the time. Microsoft has the Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways. It's a Microsoft 365 training platform that has content around the Microsoft 365 experience available to you at no cost. It gives you the ability to go and integrate that right on your SharePoint intranet and be an internal IT resource. In addition to that, Microsoft has this thing called Viva Learning, and Viva Learning is a part of another suite that allows integration from your learning platform right into Teams and SharePoint and other places across the Microsoft 365 landscape. So I hope that answers the question, Tasha. The answer is yes, it works, with integration with SharePoint as well as the other Microsoft 365 technologies. And then, of course, the new employee onboarding, HR, benefits, there's all kinds of options there for specific websites. So let's talk a little bit about kind of how all of this translates over to, mobile and desktop. And so a lot of folks don't really know that these experiences do extend to the mobile experience, but they do. And so let's take a look at kind of how some of this translates. So we talked about folks being able to get access to news. You can see here that you can search for people across SharePoint Mobile, as well as get access to news or documents and those kinds of things, as well as other sites. So those sites do exist and are available to you across the SharePoint experience on mobile. In addition to that, you can get to the files inside of the OneDrive app, which you can browse and get access to any files that you need that's associated with any of these sites. So that's a little bit there. And then I want to show you here how this kind of translates out to other areas across Microsoft 365. So you can see here, this is showing you, hey, your SharePoint home site, the landing page that I was at earlier, you can see I can get to that from the mobile app on SharePoint on my phone. I can also get to it from Outlook inside my inbox. And as new conversations pop up, they'll throw up in my Outlook and those kinds of things. In addition to that, I can get to the intranet in Teams. You can see there, the new home site app in Teams will allow you to stay right inside the Teams experience. And basically that Teams app is free and it's available, today with no extra dollars. And then lastly, you can also get it as a Yammer web part. A lot of folks don't really know about Yammer. It's more of an internal web conversation. It's like a social network for your business. Yammer is being rebranded into Viva Engage, but that's another place across the Microsoft 365 landscape. So in addition to being able to access all of those different aspects of SharePoint, I want to now kind of talk to you about how you can really see SharePoint integrate across the rest of the Microsoft 365 canvas. So OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams were really built to work together. A lot of folks don't really know this, but anytime you have a Microsoft 365 group, it has several different parts. It has a SharePoint presence. You can have a Teams presence, and those work together. I'm going to do a demo here after I get through this section, and I'll break and show you guys how the interoperability works. But you can see here, OneDrive is the place where you work with all your files. You can get access to those files across the desktop or the web, or, excuse me, on your mobile. Teams is the place where you can communicate. You can also edit these files, and then integrate with the other Office apps, have meetings and those kinds of things. And then SharePoint, of course, is the backbone to all of this. It's where the content is stored. It's where your intranet is run. All of those things kind of come together, and SharePoint is the basis for it. The good thing about it is across these 365 experiences, you have support for 320 different file types. That's a lot of different files. You can protect them. You can share and collaborate on those files in real time. You can also go through and put security in it and controls for records management, encrypt those files so they're protected. So I'm going to dive now into the browser here for a minute and do a little bit of a detour again. We've been talking about, these files and how they're made accessible. And so I want to go and kind of point out to you guys, we do have several different ways that we can get to these files. And so, right now, if I go in here to my SharePoint experience, you can see that I do have, a few different groups that I'm a part of. The landing is one of them. In addition to that, I did have this Project Falcon test, right? So you can see I have lots of different things that I am a part of, right? And so if we go back now to kind of, the landing page, you do see that we have all these different things here. Well, did you also know that I can go to my Teams, and from Teams, I'm going to be able to see these other experiences and get to these files that I can see in not just Teams, but I can see them in OneDrive as well as SharePoint as well. So this is just taking a moment to load. There we go. Okay, so you can see here, guys, inside of Teams, I have several different teams that I am a part of, right? And so we talked about, here's the sales team, here's the retail team. So I'm going to go to the Mark 8 project team. I'll click on the Files tab. And up here, it doesn't look like we've added any files. Well, that's great, because I do want to add a shortcut to OneDrive, and I'm going to actually add a file here and go ahead and kind of show you guys how I get to that. Now, if I was on my desktop, this would probably be a little bit easier, but I'll go in here, and from the My Files on OneDrive, here's the general folder on the Mark 8 project team. If I click into this, you can see there's no files there yet. Well, we're going to create a new folder, and we're going to call it Webinar Tests. In addition to that, I'm going to create a new Word document, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy, right? That's fine. It's saying it's privacy bound. That's great. And so I'm also going to add a general notes template to it, and that's fine. Great. Okay, great. And this document is saved. Now, if I come back here, you can see we have webinar tests as well as document .docx. And now if I go back, you can see already in Teams, here are the files and the folders, right? Now this is available, and you can see here, if I open in SharePoint, I can see it in SharePoint as well. And so what I just showed you guys is how, how the experience across Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive all come together. And so again, here's the documents in SharePoint. I can take this, I can actually, let's say I want to rename this to docs rather than .doc. And then if I come over to OneDrive, this is going to take a second, but I'm going to move it along to make it go faster. You can see here, this was renamed a few seconds ago by us, and this will actually update here in a moment to docs, and there it did in real time. And so those are, how you can see the files and interact with them. And then here we are right back in to Microsoft Teams. And so that's a little bit around how you see these things come together in real time, right? And any of these other teams that you're already a part of, if there were files in them, I don't really know, honestly, of all these demo files, if I actually have any files in any of these. Well, it does look like, there's a profit and loss summary here. And so this is an example of a file that you can share and you can access and get to on right here inside of Teams, right? The one other thing I mentioned inside of this SharePoint team site, you can see there is a Mark 8 OneNote. Now, if you click on the Mark 8 OneNote, what it's going to do is it's actually going to open up, the section. Right now, this notebook doesn't have anything in it, but I'm going to just create a test section. And then, you could add some text, and that's fine. And now inside of the Mark 8 project team notebook, we could go back and, it'll be there, of course, but we could go back to Teams itself. If I come over to the Mark 8 project team and I go to the general tab, right now I don't see that notebook, but I could link it right up top here and just click, go ahead and show me OneNote. It's going to look and see. It does see that I have a Mark 8 notebook. And so I am going to save that. And then that file that's created and shared right on SharePoint is available right here in Teams. And you can see we can create a second page on demand. And that's awesome. And then if we go over to the Mark 8 project team, you can see already there's that second page. It hasn't synced yet. There we go. It's synced right away. So I know that was a lot in a big, huge circle, but I did want to show you guys that circle and how all this stuff kind of comes together. We talked about how Teams, OneDrive, and SharePoint unite, and that really just kind of highlights all that together. So let's talk now about how to engage your users and ways that you can kind of meet them where they're at. It all starts with understanding the stakeholder priorities, right? And so you can see here, everyone's going to have different goals, different benefits, different things they're trying to accomplish. And so this does give you a sense of kind of some options or things that you might want to think about. You're definitely going to want to separate things into roles and understand the priorities for each of those different departments. The next thing you want to do to be able to engage these users is understand your audiences. Now, there's folks in different departments that are in similar roles though, right? So, maybe you're a field worker or you're an internal user. They're going to vary in terms of their job department, but their job roles will be similar. But you do need to understand that you're going to have different priorities based on the things your folks need to do and how they interact with the SharePoint site. Once you know what your priorities are and who your audience is, you can start to establish scenarios, right? And so let's talk about what does that mean? Well, you really need to kind of help identify the scenario. One of the things to think about is, does it solve a real problem? Is it obtainable? Will it be used by many? How much value does it add, right? And then here's some criteria that you can help to define your scenarios. They kind of start with these 4 little bullets. As someone in sales, I want to train my salespeople using a SharePoint communication site, for instance. I know this is successful when my sales team stops asking questions, right? Everybody can probably laugh about that. Maybe not, but those are just some different ways to define your criteria and your scenarios to think about. The other thing you want to have an eye on is the reporting, right? And so you do want to establish an understanding around how folks are using what's there. And so there's some built-in stuff here. You can see the links to it to help you understand how things are getting used and those kinds of things. Now we can talk about kind of tips for success, right? So after you've launched your main page, keep your content fresh, update it often, don't let it go stale. You also will find that you probably want to separate your content into different teams or departments. Of course, there's information that's for the organization at large, but really center it around teams and departments is a great place to start. Less is more. A lot of folks, think that they need to put everything on one single page. I would encourage you to spread out your content across multiple pages. Typically, it's easier to read and consume that way. And then use video and other media and embedded content to spice things up. Sometimes text gets a little bit boring. And then, of course, you want to establish content owners that will help in pushing your content out there for success and maintaining it. Let's talk about next steps. What do you do from here? Where do you go, right? And so this is an ideal kind of broken down SharePoint adoption plan. You can take a picture of this and use it. You want to identify your stakeholders to help lead the communication effort. You want to develop an end user comms plan and a training plan to go along with it. You want to develop different adoption assets, post announcements, training materials. Of course, then you're going to launch, and then you execute communication plans and training plans behind that stuff. In addition to that, is a great link. Go ahead and capture this and write it down, aka.ms /SharePoint adoption. You can see here, they give you the ability to capture templates and samples for things that you can use to communicate out with your team. So there's already branded samples there that you can capture and grab. In addition to that, there's also training. Sorry, my cat was moving. She startled me. There's also training resources available on Microsoft's website, where you can go and understand ways to, capture and develop your people as well as your plan. Between the adoption site and the training site, a lot of great information. And so this is a 6-step plan. In addition to the adoption plan, this just kind of restates it. You're going to define your vision. You're going to get buy-in from your leadership team. You're going to expect changes to come. Somebody's going to change the plan. More requirements will come and go. You're going to train your people, reevaluate things along the way, and then consult with an expert. So now we can talk about kind of how we can help. There's several different things that we can help you do inside of the SharePoint experience. We can help you update your existing SharePoint Classic site to the modern experience, so you can leverage ways to integrate it across the other Microsoft 365 landscape. We can also help you guys with moving your existing intranet solution over to SharePoint, or if you have an on-prem SharePoint system, we can help you move that up. We can also help you develop and capture requirements with your stakeholders and management team and understand, ways that you can really kind of see daily use and daily workflow in the way you guys communicate with each other. Of course, modernizing or changing the communication is another thing that we can help you with. And then also seeing the value across the Microsoft 365 landscape. These are a few of our Microsoft-based consulting services: email migration, files migration, Microsoft 365 management, data governance and compliance, Teams adoption, Azure Active Directory and Intune security. You name it, we can help with it. Here are ways that you can reach us. And now we're going to open things up to questions.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Adam, for sharing with us. Looks like we have a question here from Kim about, it looks like, can you link a YouTube channel? I'm thinking some sort of private corporate YouTube channel with unlisted videos or training. What are some options to link those types of tools?
Yeah, for sure. So we, in terms of linking YouTube channels, yes, you can embed content right into the actual site itself. I'm going to go ahead and switch my screen again, and I'll go back to the SharePoint site, and I'll land. Let me get back to the main website here. So you can see here, these are different content areas. But if I go to edit this, Kim, you can see this actually prepares it and shows you how to build this page out, right? And so you can see these are 3 different section areas. And so let's say that I wanted to create a YouTube gallery, right? I could say I want a 1 column section here. And what do I want to add? Well, I want to add YouTube. And so you can see when you do that, you're going to get a YouTube option, and you can add a video or multiple videos right here, just like that. In addition to that, you can also, choose other web parts. You can see there's a huge list of different web parts in there. There's buttons, there's dividers, pictures, stream, which is an internal kind of video system that Microsoft has, document libraries, files, Twitter, an org chart, you name it, you can do it. And what other questions can we answer?
We have a question. Let's see here. We already have an intranet site. How easy is it to switch over to SharePoint?
Yeah, good question. Well, I mean, I think what that comes down to is how complex your existing intranet site is, right? We've had folks that we've done 1-for-1 migration of the existing stuff and moved it over. A lot of times intranet sites are comprised of texts, blogs, news messages, posts, as well as company calendar, photos, and then a bunch of links. And so those are things that we can pretty easily move over as well. And then the other thing that we can do is we can certainly help kind of upgrade the existing site as well if you have a classic SharePoint site, those kinds of things. Justin says, say you share an office space with another organization. Is there a way you can have a shared intranet site that all employees in the building would have access to? Sure. Yeah. So what this looks like, Justin, in terms of Microsoft terminology, is you're going to actually have what's called a guest user participate. And so you would share that site out with a guest, and a guest is defined as someone who is not actively a part of the tenant. They're not licensed. They don't have email. They don't have Teams, but you can invite them in. And actually our consulting team does this all the time, where we actually invite external users into our system so they can collaborate on Teams files. They can put up and edit documents like spreadsheets and those kinds of things. And so, yeah, very easy to do. And you can extend that functionality out to others that aren't in your tenant as guests or external users.
It looks like there's one more question here. How many people should be involved in the management of a given SharePoint site or intranet? What are some recommendations there?
Yeah, so this management question comes in, and I know somebody had asked for this content, but I'm going to go back to my Microsoft Edge browser to demonstrate this. This is our demo tenant. And so it's great. I'm going to discard these changes we made. and just kind of show you guys. So somebody had asked, can you lock things down, right? And so you can see, you can go to share this site out, and you do want, of course, your IT to be a part of this. You do want to make sure you're not sharing sensitive company content. You can also tag things so they're not available externally and only available to internal, clients or internal employees rather. But you can see SharePoint operates off the principle of these three different privileges. No control can view and only view. Limited control means they can view and edit site content. And then full control means they can do all of those things, plus edit permissions and add others as well. So that I hope that answers the question there for Jenna. Thank you for your question. Spencer, we're currently using SharePoint for our intranet, and we'd like employees to customize their personal experiences to show Power BI analytics, industry-related news articles. Are there ways for our employees to create a unique user experience in the intranet? I'm so glad that you asked this question because it's great. There is an answer. The answer is yes. Basically, right now, Microsoft has a rebranding going on of their product Viva. And so what really you're talking about, Spencer, is the Viva personal sites is what it's called. And so that gives you the ability to create a personal site and actually post information up on it as well. I don't have that in my live demo tenant, but it is a part of the new experience that they're pushing out. And so, yes, that is definitely a capability for the technology, the product, and we can definitely help kind of facilitate that, experience and help you guys with that.
Awesome. I think that's pretty much all the questions that we're seeing. Thanks everyone for participating, putting those in, and taking a look at some of the things that SharePoint can do here.
Yeah.
You guys can see probably on the screen by now. Feel free to take a screenshot of that or get in contact with us. One of those three ways. You can email us, call, or even on the website, there's a couple contact forms to get in touch with Adam in the consulting department for Microsoft, and definitely take a look at that a little bit more in depth because there's a lot to unpack. Yeah, we'd love to kind of talk about, hey, how can this help your business objectives? How can this help your employees get more out of the tools maybe you already have access to, that kind of thing. So thanks everyone for attending and taking a look at this together. We're going to go ahead and send out a recording of the webinar here, probably around Monday or Tuesday, early next week. So expect that. Everyone who's signed up will get that in their email inbox. We'll also, again, post it on our social media channels and things like that. Also, just stick around, and when you close the webinar, you'll get a survey link that'll actually pop up on your screen. Go ahead and fill that out for us. We'd love to hear what you thought of today's content, ways that we can connect with you and support you better, and also future topic ideas if there's some areas you'd really like to hear from Microsoft or even general IT topics of interest. So would appreciate if you take some time and fill that out. Again, thanks for the presentation here, Adam, enlightening us on all the awesome stuff that SharePoint can do, peeking that back a little bit. And everybody have a great week. We appreciate the time to get together today. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.